Beloved, listen carefully. There was a moment in my life when everything around me looked silent, but everything within me was shaking. I prayed, but I had nothing. I waited, but I saw nothing. I believed, yet the impossible stood like a mountain before me. And then, in the quiet, God spoke. Not in thunder, not in noise, but in energy, a divine flow, a holy vibration, a living presence that filled my spirit before it ever changed my situation. You see, many of us are waiting for God to speak in words, but God is already speaking in power, in faith, in vision, in the unseen realm. The Bible says in Genesis, the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Before creation had formed, there was movement. Before the miracle appeared, there was energy. Tonight, I came to tell you something that can transform your life forever. God is speaking to you right now. But the question is, have you learned His language? Because when you understand how God moves, when you align your spirit with His divine energy, when your faith begins to see before your eyes do, then what was impossible, what was unchangeable, what was dead and buried will begin to respond to the voice of God flowing through you. So open your heart, quiet your fear, and get ready, because tonight you will not just hear about God, you will feel Him, understand Him, and step into the impossible. God does not speak only in words the way we expect. Many people spend their lives waiting for an audible voice, something clear and undeniable, something that sounds like human language. But God is spirit, and when He speaks, He often speaks in ways deeper than sound. He speaks through presence, through movement within your heart, through a divine energy that you can feel before you can fully explain. There are moments when you are quiet and suddenly something rises inside you. It may come as peace in the middle of chaos, or a strong conviction when everything around you is uncertain. You cannot see it with your eyes, and you may not hear it with your ears, yet it is real, powerful, and undeniable. That is God communicating with your spirit. In Bible, it says that God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. This means that the connection between you and God is not limited to physical senses. It goes beyond what you can touch or hear. It flows in the unseen realm, where faith becomes the channel and your spirit becomes the receiver. Think about the moment before a breakthrough happens. Before anything changes on the outside, something shifts on the inside. There is a stirring, a movement, an awakening. You begin to feel hope when there was none. You begin to sense direction when you are lost. This is not imagination. This is not coincidence. This is divine communication. God's energy is not chaotic or confusing. It carries clarity, peace, and purpose. Even when it corrects you, it does not destroy you. Even when it challenges you, it does not leave you in fear. Instead, it draws you closer, lifting your thoughts higher than your circumstances. You begin to see beyond what is visible, and you start to align with something greater than your current reality. Many people miss this because they are only looking for dramatic signs. They want something loud, something external, something undeniable in a physical sense. But God often begins in the quiet place. He moves gently yet powerfully, shaping your inner world before transforming your outer world. If you ignore that inner movement, you may miss the very voice of God. There is a language of the Spirit, and it is not made of sentences or grammar. It is made of impressions, visions, faith, and inner knowing. When God speaks through energy, He deposits something within you. It may be a dream that feels alive, a burden that will not leave you, or a sense of direction that keeps pulling you forward. This is how He leads, guides, and transforms. You may have experienced times when you felt prompted to act, even when it did not make logical sense. Something inside you kept edging you, pushing you, guiding you. And when you followed it, things began to align in ways you could not have planned. That is not luck. That is the flow of divine energy responding to your obedience. When you begin to recognize this, your relationship with God changes completely. You stop waiting passively and start becoming aware actively. You begin to listen not just with your ears, but with your spirit. You become sensitive to what God is doing within you, and you learn to trust that inner movement. This kind of communication requires stillness. In a noisy world filled with distractions, it is easy to overlook the subtle ways God speaks. But when you slow down, when you quiet your thoughts, when you create space within your heart, you start to notice what was always there. The more you practice this awareness, the clearer it becomes. God's energy also transforms your perspective. Instead of reacting to fear, you respond with faith. Instead of being controlled by circumstances, you begin to rise above them. Something within you becomes stronger than what is around you. That strength does not come from your own ability, but from the presence of God moving through you. As you grow in this understanding, you realize that God is always speaking. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but constantly. The question is not whether God is communicating. The question is whether you are tuned in to His frequency. When your spirit aligns with Him, you begin to perceive what others cannot see and understand what others cannot hear. This is where transformation begins, not in the external world first, but in the invisible realm within you. God plants something inside your spirit, and that inner reality eventually shapes your outer experience. What begins as energy, as movement, as presence, becomes manifestation over time. You are not disconnected from God. You are designed to receive from Him. His Spirit is always reaching, always flowing, always communicating. When you become aware of this divine energy, when you learn to recognize it and respond to it, your life begins to shift in ways that go beyond human explanation. Faith is not just a belief system. It is not merely agreeing with an idea or hoping that something good might happen. Faith is a language, a spiritual language that communicates with the invisible realm and activates what cannot yet be seen. Just as words allow you to express thoughts in the natural world, faith allows you to express trust and alignment in the spiritual world. In the Bible, it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That means faith is not empty. It carries weight. It has substance. Even when there is no physical proof, faith holds a reality that exists beyond your current situation. It is the bridge between what is and what can be. Many people misunderstand faith because they think it begins after they see results. But true faith begins before anything changes. It speaks before the evidence appears. It believes before circumstances shift. This is why faith is called a language, because it communicates something that is not yet visible as if it already exists. When you speak in faith, you are not denying reality. You are declaring a higher reality. You are aligning your words, your thoughts, and your inner vision with what God has already established in the unseen realm. Faith does not ignore problems, but it refuses to be limited by them. It sees beyond obstacles and connects to possibilities that are rooted in God's power. There is a difference between speaking out of fear and speaking out of faith. Fear is also a language, but it produces produces limitation, doubt, and paralysis. When fear speaks, it magnifies the problem and weakens your spirit. But when faith speaks, it strengthens your inner being and shifts your focus toward God's ability rather than your inability. Faith activates something within you. It begins to change how you think, how you respond, and how you move. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you start responding from conviction. Instead of being controlled by what you see, you begin to be guided by what you believe. This shift is powerful because it places your life in alignment with divine possibilities. In the teachings of David Yonggi Cho, faith is often described as something that must be visualized and spoken. It is not passive, it is active. It requires participation. When you see something in your spirit and declare it with your mouth, you begin to engage with the spiritual realm in a way that brings manifestation closer to reality. Your words carry power when they are rooted in faith. They are not just sounds, they are expressions of belief that release spiritual energy. When you declare something in faith, you are not trying to convince God. You are aligning yourself with what God has already made available. You are tuning your life to His promises and allowing that alignment to shape your reality. Faith also requires consistency. It is not something you turn on for a moment and then forget. It is a way of living, a continuous flow of trust and declaration. Even when nothing seems to change, faith continues to speak. Even when results are delayed, faith remains steady. This persistence is what builds strength in your spirit and keeps you connected to the invisible work that God is doing. There will be moments when doubt tries to interrupt your faith. Circumstances may look unchanged, and your mind may question whether anything is happening. But this is where faith becomes even more important. Faith does not depend on what you feel in a moment. It depends on what you choose to believe despite the moment. When you operate in faith, you begin to see differently. You start to recognize opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to move forward when others hold back. This is not because you are ignoring reality, but because you are connected to a deeper reality that others may not yet understand. Faith is also deeply connected to your inner vision. What you consistently see within yourself shapes what you will eventually experience. If your inner world is filled with doubt and limitation, it becomes difficult for faith to function. But when your inner world is filled with expectation and trust, faith begins to flow more freely. As you grow in faith, you realize that it is not something you manufacture on your own. It is something that develops through your relationship with God. The more you connect with Him, the more your faith strengthens. The more you understand His nature, the easier it becomes to trust Him, even when you cannot see what He is doing. Faith is the key that unlocks what is already present in the invisible realm. It is the language that communicates with God's promises and brings them into your experience. When you begin to live by this language, your life starts to shift from uncertainty to confidence, from limitation to possibility, from waiting to active expectation. Your inner world is the foundation of everything you experience in your outer world. What you think, what you believe, what you feel deep within your spirit. These are not hidden or powerless things. They are active forces shaping your reality every single day. If your inner world is filled with confusion, fear, and doubt, it becomes difficult to walk in clarity and purpose. But when your inner world is aligned with God, something powerful begins to happen. Your life starts to reflect that alignment in ways that go beyond human effort. God does not begin His work on the outside. He begins within you. Before there is a visible change, there is always an internal transformation. This is why alignment is so important. It is not about trying harder on the outside while neglecting what is happening inside. It is about bringing your thoughts, your emotions, and your spirit into agreement with God's truth. In the Bible it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. This reveals a deep spiritual principle. Your inner state is not separate from your life. It is directly connected to it. The way you see yourself, the way you interpret situations, and the beliefs you carry within you all influence the direction your life takes. Alignment begins with awareness. You must become conscious of what is happening inside you. Many people go through life reacting automatically, never stopping to examine their thoughts or emotions. But when you slow down and pay attention, you begin to notice patterns. You begin to recognize whether your inner world is filled with faith or with fear, with hope or with limitation. Once you become aware, you can begin to realign. This is where transformation starts. You start replacing thoughts that weaken you with truths that strengthen you. You begin to shift your focus from what is wrong to what is possible through God. This does not happen instantly, but it happens intentionally. Every time you choose faith over fear, you are realigning your inner world. In the teachings of David Yonggi Cho, there is a strong emphasis on the power of visualization and inner image. What you consistently see within your mind and spirit becomes a blueprint for your life. If your inner image is small, your life will struggle to expand. But if your inner image is filled with God's promises and possibilities, your life begins to move in that direction. Your emotions also play a role in alignment. They are not meant to control you, but they are indicators of what is happening within you. When your emotions are constantly negative or unstable, it may be a sign that your inner world is out of alignment. But when your spirit is connected to God, there is a deeper sense of peace that remains even when circumstances are difficult. Aligning your inner world does not mean you will never face challenges. It means that challenges will not have the final authority over you. You may still encounter difficulties, but your response will be different. Instead of being overwhelmed, you remain grounded. Instead of losing direction, you stay focused on God's truth. There is also a connection between alignment and spiritual authority. When your inner world is aligned with God, you begin to carry a different kind of presence. Your words carry more weight. Your actions carry more clarity. There is a sense of confidence that does not come from pride, but from knowing that you are connected to something greater than yourself. This alignment requires consistency. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily process. Every day you are choosing what to believe, what to focus on, and what to allow into your spirit. The more consistent you are, the stronger your alignment becomes. Over time, this creates a solid foundation that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. Distractions can easily pull your inner world out of alignment. The voices around you, the pressures of life, and the constant flow of information can create noise that interferes with your spiritual clarity. This is why it is important to create space for stillness, reflection, and connection with God. In that quiet place, your spirit can reset and realign. As your inner world aligns with God, you begin to experience His power in a more tangible way. It is no longer something distant or abstract. It becomes active within you, guiding your decisions, shaping your perspective, and influencing your actions. You start to move with purpose instead of confusion, with confidence instead of hesitation. This is where manifestation begins, not as a sudden event, but as a natural result of alignment. What is happening within you starts to express itself through you. Your thoughts influence your words influence your actions, and your actions influence your outcomes. It becomes a flow, a continuous connection between your inner world and your outer reality. You are not powerless in your life. You are a participant in what God is doing through you. When your inner world is aligned with Him, you begin to cooperate with His power rather than resist it. You become more aware, more focused, and more intentional in how you live and respond. What you call impossible is often just something that has not yet responded to the right connection. The word impossible carries weight in the natural world because it is based on limitation, what you can see, measure, and understand. But God does not operate within those limits. His power is not restricted by human logic, time, or circumstance. What seems unmovable to you is not unmovable to Him. The difference between what remains impossible and what becomes possible is not always found in external effort. It is found in connection. When there is a true living connection with God, something begins to shift. Not always immediately on the outside, but always deeply on the inside first. That connection becomes the channel through which divine power flows into your situation. In the Bible, there are moments where situations looked completely beyond hope. Barriers that could not be crossed. Conditions that could not be healed. Circumstances that could not be reversed. Yet, when there was a connection with God, through faith, obedience, and surrender, those situations changed. Not because the problem was small, but because the connection was greater. Divine connection is not about perfection. It is about relationship. It is about being in alignment with God's presence and being open to His movement in your life. Many people think they must reach a certain level before they can experience God's power. But connection begins where you are. It begins in your willingness to open your heart, to trust, and to respond. When that connection is active, your perspective begins to change. You stop seeing your situation as final. You begin to see it as subject to change. What once felt fixed starts to feel flexible. What once seemed closed begins to show signs of possibility. This is not denial of reality. It is the introduction of a higher reality into your situation. In the teachings of David Yonggi Cho, there is a strong emphasis on the idea that the spiritual realm influences the physical realm. When you are connected to God, you are not just dealing with what is visible. You are engaging with a dimension where change begins before it appears. This is why connection is so powerful. It reaches beyond what your eyes can see. The impossible often remains because there is a disconnect. A disconnect between what you believe and what God has promised. A disconnect between your inner world and His truth. When that gap is closed, when alignment and connection come together, something begins to move. It may start subtly, but it gains strength over time. Your response plays a role in maintaining that connection. It is not a passive state. It requires attention, awareness, and intentionality. When you stay connected, you begin to recognize God's leading more clearly. You become more sensitive to His direction, more aware of His presence, and more confident in His ability. There are moments when the connection will be tested. Situations may arise that challenge your belief, that try to pull you back into doubt or fear. In those moments, the strength of your connection becomes evident. Do you withdraw or do you press in deeper? Do you allow circumstances to define your reality, or do you hold on to the connection that brings a higher reality? As you remain connected, something begins to flow through you. It is not just belief anymore. It becomes influence. Your words begin to carry authority. Your actions begin to reflect confidence. There is a sense that you are not facing things alone, but that there is a power working with you and through you. The impossible begins to respond, not because you are forcing it, but because you are aligned with the source of all possibility. It is like a key fitting into a lock. When the connection is right, what was closed begins to open. What was resistant begins to shift. Not always instantly, but consistently as the connection remains strong. You may not always understand how it happens. The process is not always visible or predictable, but the result becomes evident over time. Situations begin to change, opportunities begin to appear, and what once seemed unreachable begins to move within your reach. Divine connection also brings endurance. It gives you the strength to continue even when results are delayed. It keeps you grounded when emotions fluctuate. It reminds you that the process is still active even when you cannot see immediate evidence. This connection is always available. It is not limited to certain people or certain moments. It is a constant invitation. The more you engage with it, the stronger it becomes. The more you rely on it, the more natural it feels. It becomes part of how you live, how you think, and how you respond to life. When you truly understand this, the word impossible begins to lose its power over you. It no longer defines your limits. Instead, it becomes an opportunity for God's power to be revealed through your connection with Him.